I forgot to close my basement door last week. Now I hear breathing down there at night. I heard it again last night. That slow, deliberate breathing coming from my basement. Deep inhales followed by longer exhales. The rhythm of someone trying to stay quiet but failing. I stood at the top of the basement stairs at 2:30 in the morning, my hand frozen on the doorknob, listening to proof that I wasn't alone in my house. The door was open just a crack, maybe 3 inches, letting cold air seep up from below. I'd forgotten to close it after doing laundry last Wednesday, and now something had found its way inside. My wife Karen was asleep upstairs with our daughter Lily. I couldn't wake them, couldn't scare them until I knew what I was dealing with. The breathing continued, steady and human, not an animal, not the furnace, not pipes or wind or any rational explanation my mind kept offering. Someone was down there in my basement, hiding in the dark, breathing. I'd heard it for 3 nights now, always between 2 and 3 in the morning, always the same pattern, always from the same corner where I kept old boxes and furniture covered with tarps. The first night I'd convinced myself it was nothing. The second night I'd almost called the police but talked myself out of it. What would I say? I hear breathing in my basement but I'm too scared to check. They'd think I was insane or wasting their time. Tonight was different. Tonight I was going down there. I grabbed the baseball bat I kept by the front door and returned to the basement stairs. The breathing had stopped. Complete silence now, which was somehow worse than the sound. Whoever was down there knew I was listening, knew I was aware. The basement light switch was at the bottom of the stairs, a design flaw I'd cursed 100 times. I'd have to descend in darkness, feeling my way down 13 steps, with only the dim glow from the kitchen behind me. My heart hammered against my ribs as I took the first step. The wood creaked under my weight, announcing my presence. I paused, listening. Nothing. Another step, another creak. The basement smell hit me, that familiar combination of concrete and mildew and old cardboard. 5 steps down now. The darkness was absolute. I couldn't see my hand in front of my face. I reached out with my left hand, touching the cold concrete wall to orient myself. The bat felt slick in my sweating right palm. 8 steps. 9. Almost at the bottom. A sound behind me made me spin around. The basement door swung closed with a soft click, cutting off the kitchen light completely. I was trapped in total darkness with whatever was breathing down here. "Who's there?" My voice came out shakier than I intended. No response. I fumbled down the last few steps and felt along the wall for the light switch. My fingers found it, and I flipped it up. Nothing happened. The bulb was dead, or someone had unscrewed it. I pulled out my phone and turned on the flashlight. The beam cut through the darkness, illuminating my basement in harsh white light. Boxes stacked against walls. The old couch we'd been meaning to donate. The furnace humming in the corner. Karen's exercise equipment gathering dust. Everything looked normal, except the tarp covering the old furniture had been pulled back. I hadn't touched that tarp in months. I moved closer, the phone light shaking in my trembling hand. Behind the couch, barely visible in the shadows, something moved. I raised the bat and aimed the light directly at the movement. A woman crouched there, pressed against the wall. She was maybe 30 years old, with matted blonde hair and hollow cheeks. She wore dirty jeans and a torn jacket. Her eyes reflected the phone light, wide and terrified. We stared at each other for several seconds that felt like hours. She didn't move, didn't speak, just watched me with those haunted eyes. "Please don't hurt me," she whispered finally. Her voice was hoarse, barely audible. "I'll leave. I'll go right now. Just please don't hurt me." I kept the bat raised, but my mind was racing. This woman had been living in my basement for at least 3 nights, possibly longer. "Who are you? How did you get in here?" She flinched at my questions, pressing herself harder against the wall. "The door was open. Last week. I was so cold and I just needed somewhere to sleep. Just one night. But then you closed it and I was trapped and I didn't know what to do." Her words tumbled out in a rush, desperate and frightened. "I didn't take anything. I didn't touch your things. I just slept here and drank water from the utility sink. That's all. I swear that's all." I lowered the bat slightly, my fear shifting to confusion and something else. Pity, maybe, or horror at what I was seeing. This woman wasn't a threat. She was homeless and desperate and terrified. "How long have you been down here?" I asked. She swallowed hard, her eyes darting to the stairs behind me. "Since last Wednesday. 5 days. I'm so sorry. I know I shouldn't be here. I know this is your home. I'll leave right now." But as she started to stand, I saw her stumble. She was weak, probably hadn't eaten in days. "Wait," I heard myself say. "Don't move. Just stay there." I backed toward the stairs, keeping my eyes on her. She sank back down to the floor, wrapping her arms around herself. I climbed the stairs quickly and opened the basement door, letting light flood down. Then I went to the kitchen and made a decision that would change everything. I put together a sandwich, grabbed a bottle of water and some crackers. When I returned to the basement, she was still crouched in the same spot, watching me with confused, wary eyes. "Here," I said, setting the food on the floor a few feet away from her. "Eat something." She stared at the sandwich as if it might be poisoned or a trick. Then hunger won, and she grabbed it, eating with the desperate speed of someone who hadn't had a proper meal in too long. I sat on the bottom step, the bat across my knees, and watched her eat. When she finished, She looked at me with tears streaming down her face. Thank you. God, thank you. You don't know what that means. What's your name? I asked. Vanessa. She wiped her face with dirty hands. Vanessa Clark. How did you end up homeless, Vanessa? She looked away, shame and pain crossing her face. It's a long story. Bad choices. Worse luck. My boyfriend kicked me out 3 months ago. I lost my job. Lost everything. Her voice cracked. I've been sleeping in shelters and on the street. Anywhere I could find. When I saw your basement door open, I thought maybe just one warm night. That's all I wanted. I should have called the police right then. Should have escorted her out and changed my locks and forgotten about it. But something stopped me. Maybe it was the way she looked, so broken and desperate. Maybe it was knowing that if I put her back on the street, I'd never forgive myself. You can stay tonight, I said, the words coming out before I could stop them. Down here. I'll bring you a blanket and pillow. But tomorrow we need to figure something else out. This can't continue. Vanessa's eyes widened. Really? You'd let me stay? Just tonight, I repeated firmly. And you stay down here. You don't go upstairs. My wife and daughter are sleeping and I don't want to scare them. She nodded vigorously. I understand. I promise. I won't make a sound. You won't even know I'm here. I went upstairs and grabbed spare bedding from the linen closet, moving quietly so I wouldn't wake Karen. When I returned to the basement, Vanessa had moved to the old couch. I handed her the blanket and pillow. She clutched them, as if they were precious treasures. Thank you, she whispered again. You're a good person. A kind person. I wasn't sure about that. I was a person who had just agreed to let a stranger sleep in his basement without telling his wife. That felt less like kindness and more like a terrible decision I'd regret. But I couldn't undo it now. There's a bathroom down here, I said, pointing to the small utility bathroom in the corner. You can use that, and there's the sink for water. But don't make noise. Don't do anything that will alert my family. Understand? Yes, absolutely. I'll be silent. I went back upstairs, locked the basement door from the kitchen side, and returned to bed. Karen was still asleep, undisturbed. I lay there staring at the ceiling, my mind spinning. What had I just done? What would happen in the morning? Sleep didn't come easily. Every sound made me tense, wondering if Vanessa was moving around, if she was trustworthy, if I'd just invited danger into my home. When the alarm went off at 6, I felt like I hadn't slept at all. Karen stirred beside me, stretching. Morning, she murmured. You okay? You look exhausted. Didn't sleep great, I said, which was true enough. I'll make coffee. I went downstairs before she could ask more questions. The basement door was still locked. I opened it quietly and descended the stairs. Vanessa was asleep on the couch, curled under the blanket. She looked younger in sleep, more vulnerable. I watched her for a moment, then went back up and closed the door. Karen was getting Lily ready for school, moving through the morning routine. I made breakfast and packed Lily's lunch, all while my mind kept returning to the woman sleeping in my basement. What was my plan here? I couldn't keep her hidden forever. Karen would find out eventually. And then what? After Karen left to take Lily to school, I went back downstairs. Vanessa was awake, folding the blanket neatly. Morning, I said. She jumped, startled. I'm sorry, I didn't hear you coming. We need to talk about next steps, I said. I can't let you stay here permanently. My wife will find out and this whole situation will explode. You need to find somewhere else to go. Vanessa's face fell, but she nodded. I know. I appreciate what you did. The food, and letting me stay. I'll leave today. Right now if you want. There's a shelter downtown, I said. I can give you the address. They have beds and meals. It's not perfect, but it's better than living in someone's basement. She flinched at the word shelter. I've tried the shelters. They're full most nights. And the ones that do have space, they're dangerous. People steal from you while you sleep. Men who prey on women. I'd rather be on the street. There has to be somewhere, I insisted. What about family? Friends? No family. My parents are dead. No siblings. And my friends stopped taking my calls months ago when I couldn't get my life together. When you're homeless, people treat you differently. They're scared of you or disgusted by you. You become invisible. Her voice was bitter now. You're the first person in weeks who's treated me as human. The guilt twisted in my chest. I wanted to help, but I couldn't sacrifice my family's safety and comfort. I'll make you breakfast, I said, avoiding the bigger conversation. Then we'll figure something out. I brought her toast and eggs and more coffee. She ate slowly this time, savoring each bite. We talked while she ate. She told me about her life before everything fell apart. She'd been a dental hygienist with a steady job and an apartment. Then her boyfriend became abusive. She tried to leave, and he destroyed everything she owned, got her fired by showing up at her workplace and making scenes. She'd had no savings, no support system. Within weeks, she was on the street. The system doesn't help people, she said quietly. Social services has a 6-month wait list. Emergency housing is always full. The shelters are dangerous. If you don't have money or family, you just fall through the cracks. And once you're homeless, it's almost impossible to climb back up. No address means no job. No job means no apartment. No apartment means no address. It's a cycle that never ends. I'd never thought about homelessness beyond seeing people on street corners. Vanessa's story made it real and personal. Stay one more night, I heard myself say. Just while I look into some options. Maybe I can find a program or organization that can help. But you have to stay hidden. If my wife finds out, this ends immediately. Vanessa looked at me with such profound gratitude that I felt uncomfortable. Thank you. One more night. That's all I need. I'll find somewhere tomorrow. I promise. I went to work that day distracted and anxious. I researched homeless services on my phone during breaks. Everything Vanessa had said was true. Shelters were overcrowded with months-long waiting lists. Housing programs required documents and deposits that homeless people couldn't provide. The system was broken and people were suffering because of it. When I got home that evening, Karen was making dinner. "You've been quiet lately," she said. "Everything okay?" "Just work stress," I lied. "Nothing major." After dinner and after Lily went to bed, I told Karen I had work to do in the home office. Instead, I went to the basement with food for Vanessa. She was reading an old paperback I'd left down there. "How was your day?" she asked, as if this was a normal situation. "Fine. Listen, I found a program that might help. It's a transitional housing program for women. They provide temporary apartments and job training, but there's a waiting list." "How long?" she asked. 3 months. Her face fell. "I understand. That's too long. I'll leave tomorrow. I mean it this time, but I couldn't send her back out there. Not when I'd seen how desperate she was, how the system had failed her. "You can stay," I said slowly, "until a spot opens up. But you have to be completely silent. My wife can never know. If she finds out, we're both in trouble." Vanessa grabbed my hand, squeezing it. "I'll be a ghost. You won't even know I'm here. I promise." That's how it started. 1 night became 3 nights, became a week. I brought Vanessa food and supplies, always when Karen was out or distracted. I'd tell Karen I was doing laundry or working on a project in the basement. She never questioned it. Vanessa kept her promise. She was silent during the day, only moving around at night when everyone was asleep. She used the utility sink to wash herself and her clothes. She read books I brought her and wrote in a journal. She became my secret, my burden, my responsibility. 2 weeks passed, then 3. The transitional housing program kept pushing back their timeline. 4 months now, then 5. I was trapped in a situation I'd created. Then Karen said something that made my blood run cold. "I think we have mice in the basement. I heard scratching down there yesterday." My heart stopped. "Mice? Are you sure?" "Pretty sure. We should call an exterminator." "No," I said too quickly. "I mean, let me check first. Put out some traps. Might just be pipes making noise." She looked at me strangely. "Since when are you Mr. Fix-It? You hate dealing with pests." "I'll handle it," I said firmly. "No need to waste money on an exterminator." That night I went down to the basement and explained the situation to Vanessa. "You have to be more careful. My wife heard something. If she comes down here, everything falls apart." Vanessa looked panicked. "I'm so sorry. I dropped a book yesterday. I thought everyone was out. It won't happen again." "It can't happen again," I emphasized. "You understand what's at stake here? My marriage, my family, everything." "I know. I'm grateful for everything you've done. I don't want to cause problems." But problems were inevitable. A week later, Karen insisted on doing laundry herself. I tried to stop her, but I couldn't without raising suspicion. She went downstairs while I followed, my heart pounding. Vanessa had hidden behind the furnace, pressing herself into the shadows. Karen loaded the washing machine, completely oblivious to the woman hiding 10 feet away. When she came back upstairs, I could barely breathe. "You're acting weird," Karen said. "What's going on with you?" "Nothing. Just stressed about work." "You've been stressed for a month. Maybe you should see someone. Talk to a therapist." "I'm fine," I insisted, but I wasn't fine. I was living with constant anxiety, lying to my wife, harboring a homeless woman in my basement. This had to end. I went to Vanessa that night and told her we needed to make a change. "I can't keep doing this. The risk is too high. We need to find you somewhere else to go." Vanessa's eyes filled with tears. "Please, just a little longer. The housing program said maybe 2 more weeks. Please don't put me back on the street." 2 more weeks, I agreed reluctantly. "But that's it. After that, you have to go." Those 2 weeks were torture. I was constantly on edge, waiting for Karen to discover the truth. I brought Vanessa meals and supplies like I was running a secret operation. The guilt was eating me alive, but I couldn't abandon her now. Then disaster struck. Lily was playing in the living room and dropped her favorite toy down the basement stairs. Before I could stop her, she ran down to get it. I chased after her, but I was too slow. Lily stood at the bottom of the stairs, staring at Vanessa, who had frozen on the couch. "Daddy, who's that lady?" Lily asked. Vanessa looked at me with pure terror. I scooped up Lily and carried her upstairs. "Just someone who needed help with something. Don't worry about it." But Lily wasn't stupid. "Why is she in our basement? Does Mommy know?" "It's a surprise," I said desperately. "Don't tell Mommy yet, okay? It's a secret surprise." Lily nodded, but I knew this wouldn't last. She'd tell Karen. It was only a matter of time. I was right. That evening during dinner, Lily asked Karen, "When is the lady in the basement leaving?" Karen's fork stopped halfway to her mouth. "What lady?" I tried to deflect. "She's confused. There's no lady." But Lily was insistent. "Yes, there is. I saw her today. She was sitting on the old couch." Karen turned to me slowly. "What is Lily talking about?" I could have kept lying. Should have kept lying. But I was exhausted from weeks of deception. "There's something I need to tell you." Karen sent Lily to her room and then turned to me with an expression I'd never seen before. Cold fury mixed with disbelief. "Start talking. Right now." I told her everything. The breathing in the basement, finding Vanessa, letting her stay, the weeks of hiding her. Karen listened in absolute silence until I finished. Then she exploded. Are you insane? You let a stranger live in our house for a month without telling me? With our daughter sleeping upstairs? She needed help, I said weakly. She was desperate. And you decided to risk our family's safety without even consulting me? What is wrong with you? She was right. I'd made a terrible decision and compounded it by lying for weeks. I'm sorry. I know I should have told you, but I couldn't just throw her out on the street. Yes, you could have. That's exactly what you should have done. Or called the police. Or taken her to a shelter. But instead, you snuck around behind my back and put our family in danger. Vanessa isn't dangerous, I protested. How do you know that? Because she told you? Because she seemed nice? You don't know anything about her. She could be a drug addict or mentally ill or violent. She's none of those things. She's just someone who fell on hard times. Karen's laugh was bitter. And you're what? Her savior? Her hero? You couldn't help her through legitimate channels, so you had to hide her in our basement? Do you hear how insane that sounds? She pushed past me and headed for the basement stairs. I followed, dread filling my stomach. Karen, wait. Let me talk to her first. But she was already descending. Vanessa stood when she saw Karen, her face pale with fear. I'm so sorry, Vanessa started. I never wanted to cause problems. I'll leave right now. You're damn right you will, Karen said coldly. Get your things and get out, now. Vanessa gathered the few belongings she had while I stood helplessly watching. Karen wouldn't even look at me. When Vanessa had her jacket on, she turned to me. Thank you for trying to help. I mean that. You're a good person. But I didn't feel good. I felt like a failure and a fool. I watched Vanessa walk out our front door and disappear into the night. Karen slammed the door behind her and locked it. Then she turned to me. We need to talk about what happens next. About whether I can trust you anymore. About whether this marriage can survive what you did. I tried to do the right thing and ended up destroying everything. The next few weeks were the worst of my life. Karen barely spoke to me. She slept in the guest room. She told me she needed time to think about whether she wanted to stay married. I'd betrayed her trust in the deepest way possible. Meanwhile, I couldn't stop thinking about Vanessa. Where had she gone? Was she safe? Was she sleeping on the street again? The guilt consumed me. I drove around downtown looking for her, checking the places where homeless people congregated. I never found her. One night I was lying in bed unable to sleep when my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. Hello? Mr. Garrison? This is Detective Ruiz with the police department. I need to ask you some questions about a woman named Vanessa Clark. My blood turned to ice. What about her? When was the last time you saw her? A few weeks ago. Why? What happened? Silence. Then, she's dead, Mr. Garrison. Her body was found 3 days ago. We're investigating the circumstances. The phone nearly slipped from my hand. Dead? How? That's what we're trying to determine. Your name and address were found in her belongings. We need you to come to the station tomorrow and answer some questions. I agreed numbly and hung up. Vanessa was dead. The woman I'd tried to help, who I'd ultimately failed, was dead. I stumbled to the bathroom and vomited. Karen found me there 20 minutes later, shaking and crying. What happened? She asked, her anger temporarily replaced by concern. I told her about the phone call. Her face went pale. Oh my God. Do they think you're involved? I don't know. They want to question me. The next morning I went to the police station with a lawyer Karen had insisted I hire. Detective Ruiz was a middle-aged woman with sharp eyes and no-nonsense demeanor. Tell me about your relationship with Vanessa Clark, she said, once we were in the interrogation room. I explained everything. How I'd found her in my basement. How I'd let her stay. How my wife had discovered her and made her leave. Detective Ruiz took notes, her expression unreadable. And you never saw her again after she left your house? No. I looked for her a few times but couldn't find her. Why would you look for her? Because I felt responsible. I'd let her stay for weeks and then suddenly put her back on the street. I wanted to make sure she was okay. Detective Ruiz leaned forward. Mr. Garrison, Vanessa Clark died of exposure. She froze to death in an abandoned building downtown. The medical examiner estimates she'd been dead for about 10 days before her body was discovered. The room tilted. She'd frozen to death. While I'd been sleeping in my warm bed, Vanessa had been dying alone in the cold. I wanted to help her, I whispered. I tried. Did you? Detective Ruiz's voice was sharp. Because from where I'm sitting, you made her situation worse. She had a safe place to stay. Then you took it away. My wife found out. I didn't have a choice. There's always a choice, Mr. Garrison. You could have helped her find real housing. You could have connected her with services. Instead, you used her as a pet project to make yourself feel good. And when it became inconvenient, you discarded her. Her words hit harder than any physical blow. She was right. I'd helped Vanessa in the worst possible way, given her false hope and temporary safety, then ripped it away. Am I being charged with something? I asked. My lawyer had been silent, but now he spoke. If my client isn't being charged, this interview is over. Detective Ruiz sighed. You're not being charged. Vanessa's death was exposure and malnutrition. No crime was committed. But you should know that several of her friends from the homeless community told us about you, about how she thought you were going to save her, how she believed she'd finally found someone who cared. She stood up. You can go. but I hope you think about what your actions really accomplished. I left the station feeling like I'd been gutted. Karen was waiting in the car. What happened? I told her everything the detective had said. About Vanessa's death. About how I'd made everything worse. Karen was quiet for a long time. I'm so sorry she died. That's horrible. But you can't blame yourself for everything. You tried to help. I did help. And then I stopped. That's worse than never helping at all. We drove home in silence. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept seeing Vanessa's face. Her gratitude when I gave her food. Her fear when Karen discovered her. Her sad acceptance when she left. She died alone and cold because I'd failed her. The next day, I did something I should have done months ago. I contacted every homeless service organization in the city. I volunteered at shelters. I donated money to housing programs. I met with city council members to advocate for better services. Karen watched this transformation with mixed feelings. You're trying to ease your guilt, she said. Maybe, but that doesn't make the work less important. Over the next few months, I threw myself into advocacy. I shared Vanessa's story with anyone who would listen. I lobbied for more funding for homeless services. I worked with organizations to create better support systems. Karen eventually joined me. She'd been angry about my deception, but Vanessa's death had affected her too. Together, we created a fund in Vanessa's name to help homeless women find housing. It wasn't much, but it was something. 6 months after Vanessa's death, the transitional housing program we'd been waiting on opened a new facility. They named one of the apartments after Vanessa. I stood at the dedication ceremony and looked at her name on the plaque. This apartment would house women who needed help, women who'd been failed by the system, who'd fallen through the cracks. It wouldn't bring Vanessa back, but maybe it would save someone else. Karen took my hand. She'd appreciate this. What you're doing. It doesn't make up for what happened. No, but it's something. It's better than doing nothing. That night, I went home, and for the first time in months, I went down to the basement. I stood in the spot where Vanessa had slept, where she'd read books and written in her journal and believed someone cared about her fate. I'd tried to help in the wrong way. I'd let fear and secrecy poison what could have been genuine assistance. I'd learned the hardest lesson possible. Good intentions without proper action are worse than useless. They're dangerous. A year later, our marriage had survived. Karen had forgiven me, though trust took longer to rebuild. Lily had mostly forgotten about the lady in the basement. Life had returned to something approaching normal, but I'd never forget. Every time I walked past someone on the street, every time I saw a homeless person, I thought of Vanessa. The system that had failed her was still failing others, but now I was working to change it, one small step at a time. The basement door stayed closed now, locked tight, but the memory of what happened when I left it open would stay with me forever. Vanessa Clark had needed help, and I'd given her crumbs instead of real support. That mistake had cost her life. I couldn't change the past, but I could affect the future. I could make sure other women had real options, real support, real paths out of homelessness. Vanessa's death wouldn't be meaningless. I'd make sure of that. 3 years later, the fund we'd created had helped 43 women find housing and jobs. The transitional program had expanded. Local shelters had better resources. It still wasn't enough, but it was progress. I ran into Detective Ruiz at a city council meeting about homeless services. She recognized me immediately. Mr. Garrison, I've been following your work. Detective, I was hard on you that day at the station. Maybe too hard. No, you were right. I needed to hear it. She nodded slowly. Vanessa's case stayed with me. I've seen a lot of deaths in my career, but hers felt different. Preventable. It was preventable. That's what makes it so hard. For what it's worth, what you're doing now matters. You're saving lives. I thanked her, but the words felt hollow. I'd save 100 lives, and it wouldn't bring Vanessa back. That night, I went home, and Karen was making dinner. Lily was doing homework at the kitchen table. Everything was normal and peaceful and safe. I thought about Vanessa, about the woman who'd hidden in my basement and trusted me to help her. I'd failed her in the most fundamental way, but I wouldn't fail the others. Every woman we helped through the fund, every person who found housing through the programs we supported, that was Vanessa's legacy. She died alone and forgotten by most people, but not by me, never by me. I made sure her story was told, made sure people knew what happens when society fails its most vulnerable members, made sure her death meant something. The breathing in the basement had stopped years ago, but its echo remained, a reminder of choices made and consequences faced, a reminder that good intentions weren't enough. Action mattered, follow-through mattered, real help, not performative gestures mattered. I'd learned that lesson too late for Vanessa, but not too late for the others. Thanks for watching till the end. Make sure to subscribe and like to not miss the next story.